Hello. So I just came out of seeing The Flash. It is currently 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired and I've had a few beers, but here we go. This is an interesting movie, and I'm gonna keep this spoiler free as possible because it's very. I don't want to ruin it for anyone who's going to see it, and I don't want to get into certain discussions on here, including the problematic, and I hate that word, Ezra Miller taking center stage. So we'll keep all of that stuff out of it and just talk about the film. So, where do we talk about this? And where do we start with this? So, this feels like a movie that kind of is there to undo the Snyderverse a little bit. And okay, controversial opinion. I really enjoyed Man of Steel. I love Batman v Superman, the ultimate cut. And I adored the Snyder cut of Justice League. We can pretend the Joss Whedon mess didn't happen. I was part of the group that helped get that released. So there we go. So first things first. The film is actually a good movie. It's not going to win any awards. It's lots of fast editing, and it can feel a little disjointed because of the fast editing. Unlike the previous films, the three that I mentioned, for example, the editing's quite slow and intentionally slows down when it needs to, and this just keeps the pace up. I suppose The Flash, that makes sense. But I feel like this film, I can see why it isn't doing well. Pitch podge of franchise fatigue. I think people are getting bored with superhero movies. But it's actually a decent movie. It's a popcorn movie, and that's the ultimate thing here. It's not particularly deep. It's not going to blow your mind. It's not going to win any awards. It's a popcorn movie, and that's all it is. Now, we meet a new character. We meet Supergirl, and I think they did that really well. I was surprised. I'm kind of disappointed it's not. We don't really get much Henry Cavill because he is one of my favourite Supermen. And we'll talk about cameos in a minute. General Zod returns along with his two, and you get a lot of other people popping up. Now, the interesting one that pops up in this is Michael Keaton as Batman. And it retcons things slightly, because originally the two sequels that didn't star Michael Keaton were meant to be the same Batman. That isn't the case. Long story short, and the whole thing. So, Batman and Batman Returns are the canon movies, and then other stuff happens, but again, we'll talk about that. And they recount that as multiverse stories, which I like. Ben Affleck as Batman is very good. I like him as Batman, although Michael Keaton is probably my favourite. He was my first Batman. I think that's ultimately the thing. Now, there is some there's some elephants in the room. So there's computer generated imagery using Henry Cavill's likeness, which is bizarre. And some of the CGI in this movie looks a bit PlayStation FMV. When it looks good, oh god, it looks good. When it looks bad, oh no. It's this messy, awkward movie in places. So, some of the CGI is awful. But I can forgive some dodgy CGI. I'm hoping they fix that for the Blu-ray or streaming version or extended cut or something. There probably will be. Jeremy Irons is back as Alfred. You have Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, Jason Momoa as Arthur Curry. And I think that's nice. And then you see a few people from the past. I'm not going to go into all the cameos, but there are some that are very notable. Adam West as Batman. Very briefly, Adam West appears. Then we end up with Christopher Reeves and the actress that played Supergirl appearing together on screen in some PS2 FMV style stuff going on. I really do wish those scenes should have looked better. I know that's a thing. We get the Golden Age version of The Flash popping up in black and white, which was a nice little nod, and the closest these cinema films have ever come to acknowledging the Flash, the Arrowverse, which is hit and miss, but they had some good moments. And you get some very interesting other little cameos. Without going into detail, George Clooney appears. And I think that's an interesting way of doing it. That's a very interesting way of doing it. And a nice little nod to that film. George Clooney has always had a bit of a soft spot for that role. And because it's a bad film, he acknowledges that. But it's, how can I word this? It's the film that taught him a few lessons. We'll word it that way. I find some of the special effects interesting. We also see a few voice cameos from unrelated films, such as Teen Titans Go! The movie. And Nicolas Cage, well, he is one of the voice roles in that, but he was in the unproduced Superman Lives, and it's interesting because they shot his scenes through motion capture, scanning, and CGI. And they used a bit of artificial intelligence, which I don't agree with. But that's, again, a different video. And I get why, because it is used in movies for tracking and scene tracking and things. And deep faking. It's very brief, but it's there. Christopher Reeves, like I said, appears. And Supergirl. Adam West as Batman. George Reeves appears through the use of archive footage, which I thought was interesting. I do find with the Christopher Reeves cameo, considering Brandon Roth is meant to be the same Superman, because again, unpopular opinion, I like Superman Returns. It ignores the god-awful Superman 3 and the atrocious movie Superman 4 completely. And they could have somehow combined them, used him and a little CGI to give more of a Christopher Reeves look. But, I mean, it was interesting. You also see a few people, such as Eartha Kitt pops up. Cesar Romano and Jack Nicholson, and they feature through archive recordings. So it's a lot of it's a lot going on. There's a lot of fan stuff. There's a lot of stuff that feels we are saying goodbye to this. So it's actually a very good film in many ways. Michael Keaton can turn his head at last. Just going to put that. Though he still does the Batman twist as it comes. I don't think this is a great movie. I don't think it's a bad movie either. I think it's a movie. I think it's a movie that exists just to be what it is. The writing is decent. It looks good. It fills some buckets of popcorn. I'm not shocked it hasn't done very well. But it does feel a little disjointed and a bit flat in places. I did love the cameos. Seeing Michael Keaton as Batman made me feel ancient, because I remember having that on VHS as a kid in the 90s. I had both those movies. This is the last film before James Gunn ruins everything. And I find I'm just trying to find a way of saying this without giving too much plot away. A lot happens. A lot is going to happen. It's one of those films you may need to watch twice. But it's what it needs to be. It's not particularly deep. It's not loud. It's not award-winning. I don't think it's as strong as, say, Zack Snyder's Justice League or Batman v Superman, The Ultimate Cut, or Man of Steel, for that matter. I don't think they're that strong. But I think this feels like a goodbye to the franchise. And I think it's... I wish there was more I could say that wouldn't give too much away, because I don't want to give the story away. I don't want spoilers. No one wants spoilers. But this film, bulk of this film happens in crosses over into the events of Man of Steel, and you see the ship and General Zod and all of that. So those are... that's the plot point here. And again, I don't want to say too much. I think, and I'm not going to go into the problematic history, I feel like Ezra Miller shouldn't really... They could have easily done a thing and have him walk through something or do something fast and come out with a new face. And also the drama with Henry Cavill. He filmed a cameo as Superman, but it was cut after James Gunn's new DC universe was announced, which is a shame. And I think they should have at least included a little cameo from the Batman. So that would have been good, I think, just to acknowledge that film in a wider scale. It's interesting because it's not a bad movie, but it's not gonna make you go wow. That's the best way to describe it. It's perfectly fine, perfectly doable. I think it's stronger than a lot of MCU movies, and that's the thing. Like, a lot of recent MCU movies have been very weak and very fluttery and very pointless. But this is stronger than those. I do think Michael Keaton steals the show a little bit, partly because I think he is... I wouldn't call him a definitive Batman, but I would call him a very strong Batman. And he's a very strong actor, and it shows. He can act most of the rest of the cast off the screen in the few scenes that he has. He's not in the film a huge amount, but he is a big part of it. And again, I can't say too much because that will be spoilerific for everything. I did burst out laughing when I saw George Clooney pop up, though. So, overall, I would give this a good 8 out of 10. For what it is. Despite everything, it's a good 8 out of 10. It's not mind-blowing. It's not going to make you go wow. And I think this is kind of a coffin nail in the franchise. And I think if the drama hadn't have happened with Ezra Miller, I think it maybe would have done better, but that's already put a few people off. So, I'll put it this way. Go see it, enjoy it. It's what it needs to be. And very enjoyable. So, as always, tell me what you guys think, and I will talk to you guys a bit later. I understand if no one's planning to see this movie, it's not doing particularly well as well. So, there we go, my 2 a.m. video.